Okay, chapter 9, we're going to talk about merchandising and merchandise buying and handling. So this chapter has a lot of material. I'm going to just touch on a number of things and tell you what to look at in the book for the actual details, but I will show you what I'm talking about as we go through this. So I'm going to skip a few slides. You'll see I'll go over them very quickly. Let's talk a little bit about merchandise buying and handling. So this is the actual physical purchase of the product or the services that we're taking and going to be selling. And this is how those products or services are brought to the outlet, how they're handled, and how they're finally placed and ready for sale, how they're made ready for sale. What I, as a buyer, want to do is have the best possible purchase for my retailer. So I'm working for a retailer. I'm out looking for merchandise, say I'm maybe even in China or something, and I'm looking for a good deal that I can get what my employer needs, but give it the very best deal for them. It's very sophisticated when we plan this out. How much, when will they arrive, etc. And it's not just about numbers. It's also about some qualitative aspects of it where we're assessing, is this going to be qualitatively what we really want? Is this well made enough? Is this the right color? Is this the right shade of that color, etc. The buyer has to understand who they're buying for, what the industry is all about, the physical side plus the online needs. They're both very big right now. Kind of dollar volumes we're talking about and some negotiation basics. There's a lot of people actually that I've had in class over the last 7 or 8 years in the central Ohio area, I should say Columbus area, that were actually merchandise buyers. I had a number of people in the MBA program. So it's a nice way of earning a living. You're shopping all the time, but it's also difficult because you are constantly negotiating, and you have to be able to find the right thing at the right price. There's a gross margin return on income calculation that the book talks about. I want you to be aware of that. I'm not going to go through it, but this is the calculation you'll find in the book. Just be aware of it. Let's talk a little bit about a phrase that we hear quite often in retail, which is inventory turnover. So inventory turnover is a measure of how many times a store sells the average investment in inventory during the course of a year. So if you think about it, they got the stuff sitting on the shelves, and as people buy it, it's going out the door, and there's more stuff being put on the shelves as it's going through. But after you look at it for a whole year, you might say we've turned over inventory 3 times during the course of this year, or 6 times in the course of this year, or 6 times in the course of this week if we're selling a lot of something. That would be inventory turnover. And again, there's a couple of methods of calculating that. The book talks about those. So you want to be aware of those methods, and you want to be aware of the difference when we're talking about it in units also. There's a thing called the cash conversion cycle. So if you think about it, and this is very important for a merchandise manager, I have stuff that I got to sell, and that's how I get my cash. So I have to turn that inventory very quickly. At the same time, though, I don't want to have what they call a stock up, where I run out of whatever's selling. I run out of it, and then people are upset because they want to buy it. It's not there anymore. And I want to also, as part of this, if I've got somebody says here, I'm gonna buy this from you, but I won't be able to pay you for 15 days, and I say that's fine. That's an accounts receivable. I can receive that, but I want to be able to collect it 15 days or earlier, whatever our agreement was, or earlier, so that I can keep being able to convert that stuff into cash. I've sold the stuff, but I don't have the cash for it yet. If I've got an account receivable, I want to get the account receivable in, and I want to be able to pay the people I owe. This is an example of the cash conversion cycle, and again, the textbook will walk you through this step by step. And I think you can see when you look at it, take a couple of minutes to look at it, you can actually see that it does make good sense. How do we improve the cash conversion cycle? Well, get everybody trained, everybody pulling the same direction. Prioritize so that the large dollar amounts of receivables outstanding and problem accounts are being followed up and nagged on a daily basis. Come up with some kind of system to capture communication and track reports. What's going on? What's been said? What hasn't been said? How are things standing right now? And make sure everybody's on the same side of the page. Maybe offer, if you guys can get this in, you'll get a bigger bonus at the end of the month. If you can get these accounts receivable quicker, we'll set this up at some kind of a formula, you're going to get a bonus at the end of the month, $500 or whatever. Wow. All of a sudden now they're going to be more motivated to get this collections done. Eliminate non-value added activities. You got people doing stuff in triplicate. It's not really adding any value. Get rid of it. Don't do that. Planning your inventory. So There's 4 ways of doing that: basic stock, percentage variation, stock to sales, and week supply. And again, the textbook goes into this at greater length. In this case, we're really looking at beginning of month, projected sales with some kind of fudge figure, and this one tends to work if you don't have a lot of inventory turnover. So it means you're not having a lot of people buying a lot of stuff. It may be like a jewelry store. There's not a lot of inventory turnover, but there is some, but it's just not huge. So my basic stock method might be good enough for you. And they go walk you through the calculations, and again, I would direct you to the textbook, which is going to show you this, and it makes sense. You can run the numbers a couple of times just with a pen and paper. It's not hard to figure out. The next way is the percentage of variation method, and this one usually 6 or more times a year that they're turning inventory. And this has to do with the assumption that there's going to be stock percentages fluctuations each month. That's not going to be more than half the average stock on hand. So it's going to go up and down, but not like these huge swings. It's going to be something we can kind of plan in advance. And again, they give us a calculation in the textbook. It's not hard to walk through. You can attach some numbers to it and play around with it yourself. Third way, stock to sales method. In this case, we're looking at inventory investment measured as cost instead of retail. So the cost, not the retail price. So again, we're going to be having a formula that we're able to use. Pretty straightforward. It's in the textbook. You might want to be able to play around with a little bit, but I want you to know this is the third of the 4 ways to come up with this. Advantages and disadvantages. One of the disadvantages, it's going to adjust inventory to a greater extent than sales may require. So they're going to have some fluctuation. Advantages, I can compare from external sources rather than just using my own numbers. Week supply is the 4th and final one here. Beginning of month, planned inventory, etc. We can walk you through that in the textbook, and gives us a way of being able to do these calculations. What are we going to need this week on supply? Another way of looking at this stuff is open to buy, which would be what are my planned purchases less what I've committed to purchase. And that would be the difference between the two would be my open to buy retail. Let's talk a little bit about the merchandise mix in retailing. So merchandise mix is the combination of the stuff, the merchandise, the variety, the assortment, the depth, the quality, and the price points. Wow, there's a lot of definitions there that you might not be familiar with. The book talks and walks you through these things, talks about them, walks you through them. And the goal, though, is that you want to meet or exceed the needs of the target market. Don't make them miserable after they buy from you. Make them say, wow, that was really more than I expected. So first definitional term, and again, it's like learning another language. So in retail, when we talk about variety, we're talking about something that's also called breadth, and that is the number of different product lines. So you go into a battery store, is there a lot of variety? No, there's not a lot of variety because they're selling batteries, okay? If you go to department stores, there are a lot of variety. Yes, there's a lot of different departments selling wildly different things, okay? So that would be how broad something is. That's the variety. Okay, next, though, is assortment. So assortment is also called depth. It sounds like variety, but it's different. In this case, assortment is the stock keeping units within a category. So let's talk about that. So variety in a department store is very broad, but in a battery store, it's very narrow. However, in a battery store, my assortment could be very deep, meaning I've got a lot of types of batteries in there, right? Where in the department store, I may not have a lot of selection for, say, candles, okay? I may just have 3 kinds of candles that are shown there. If I went to a candle store, it would be a much deeper assortment. So breadth, depth, variety, assortment. Does that make sense? And then we talk about shallow and deep when it comes to assortment. This little chart kind of gives you an idea of the types of stores, and when we're talking about variety or assortment, what kind of stores would fit, shallow, deep, narrow, broad, what kind of stores would we find there? So again, I've got a department store being very broad when it comes to variety, and perhaps also very deep when it comes to assortment. However, a discount store, I may only have, like I said, 3 kinds of candles there, and so it would be shallow, or maybe only 1 kind of candle. Private versus national brands. So if you go into, say, I'm just going to pick on Target here, you go into Target, and they will have Target brand things. In this case, the advantage they have is they make more profit off of those things. but it's also hard to establish brand loyalty. It's also hard to get people motivated to come in and buy stuff from you with the Target brand. They'd rather buy if it's some kind of detergent or something like that, they're going to say, well, I want to use Tide because it's a better quality. Now, maybe Procter & Gamble's also making the Target brand. I don't know, but maybe they are, but you don't know that. It doesn't look like it. So a national brand might have an advantage where it's supported by all these communications that are out in the environment. There's more consumer demand. Disadvantages, there's less profit for the retailer. Let's talk about variables. So we've got budget constraints, how much I can spend, space limitations, how much room I've got for stuff, how often things turn over for different kinds of products, and then how often I have to replenish my stock. I've got to interact with vendors a lot as a retailer as well. So I want to pick good vendors that are going to work for me and work for my customers. So I want to identify them. We want to have the technology in place that we can work together. And we have to understand about negotiating and the give and take that goes with that. What is expected from them? What's expected? Identification would include things like, is their merchandise aligned with what I'm trying? Is it like, if I'm a quality retailer, I don't want to have a junky vendor, a vendor that's selling junk. I don't want that. What are their distribution policies? What are their price? Will I take something back if it never sells at the end of the Christmas season? What are their price points, etc.? Am I going to be competing against other clients of theirs? Are they also supplying my competitors, etc.? And the book talks about a number of these ways of thinking through who you're going to be using for your vendor. We're going to be talking about technology again in this chapter. The two things that we talk about: vendor managed inventory. So actually, when somebody buys the soap at my Target store, Target doesn't have to send a note to the vendor to let them know that I need more soap at this particular store. They're either inside the store managing the inventory for me. They come in and they check. They have somebody come in and check for me, or they've got some kind of electronic data interchange, an EDI system, where when a sale is made, an electronic note gets sent there saying the level is now at this, now it's at this, now it's at this of that product, and they know that they're supposed to be. Types of negotiations, we might be looking for discounts. Okay, big surprise there. So discount in trade, discount if I I have a higher quantity once I'm over a certain amount of units. Can I get a discount for that? Do things get added together? Is there certain seasons? Do you pay? Give me something for cash. You charge me less. Are there allowances being made for things? Those are aspects of negotiation. Logistics. Logistics means getting things from one place to the other. So I want to find how it's most effective for me to get my products into the store so that I can sell them. And this would have to do with not just transportation, but also with receiving, the checking, and store. It's the right stuff, the right time. How is it stored? How do we manage the supply chain, and vice versa. It's kind of interesting, this particular chart. What's the cheapest way to ship things? A lot of times people say trucking or rail, but actually the cheapest way to ship things is water. Very low costs. Air is one of the most efficient, but it's one of the most high cost ways of doing it. And it's not door to door, okay, either. So I still got to load on a truck and ship it from the airport. Receiving merchandise, usually I've got some kind of a central department that's going to take the merchandise in, or I might have decentralized, like a district or regional, or it could just be my store. Supply chain management, I'm coordinating the vendors and trading partners, trying to improve the overall performance long term for everybody in the chain of supply.